The term starving artist has been around as long as there's been artists, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of artists that are making a living off their art. It's an extremely small percentage, and there's a statistic out there that says 0.4% of artists make enough to make a full-time living off their art, be that film, acting, painting, music, whatever it is. 0.4, it's an extremely small percentage. Now, does this mean that I think I'm saying, oh, don't go after art or don't pursue art as in a career? That's not what I'm saying at all. I actually think in a lot of ways art is one of the best things to pursue. It's the most human. It just affects us the most. It can affect culture. It affects our emotions. It's got a huge influence throughout history. And I think what I want to talk about today is that there is a different way of being an artist nowadays than there was in the past. And I would say in some ways it's better now to be an artist than it ever was in the past. And I'm speaking here from my own personal experience as well. I'm artistic as well. There's a lot of things that I enjoy, like making films. I'm very passionate about something that I'm pursuing really hard. I also dabble in music, and obviously I've been in the acting world managing for the last 10 years. So there's always something in that world that I love, and a lot of that is storytelling. I've always loved stories. Even as a kid, I was the one reading like Lord of the Rings when I was 10. I was reading all these fantasy stories and playing fantasy video games, because that's always what I've loved. I've always been very attracted to all kinds of fictional stories. I knew that if I wanted to pursue that, I would have to take care of the financial side of my life too. If I was just pursuing film and just trying to make movies and that's it, I wouldn't make enough to live, definitely not comfortably. And that's unfortunately the reality for a lot of artists. And there are ways nowadays that doesn't have to be the case. And I think one of the things that we're lucky is that we have the internet, we have social media. It's really the only time in history that you're able to basically make a side income, and sometimes that side income can be a huge income, can be a much bigger income than your art, just through social media, online business, the internet, whatever it is you're doing. There's a lot of ways to make money without even having a full-time job. Yes, it takes a lot of effort and time, especially initially, but it's still better, especially in the long term, especially if you want to pursue something artistic, than having a job. A 9 to 5 makes it extremely hard to really pursue your art as much as you want, even just energy wise. I know there's videos out there where people talk about, pursue it from 7 to 9 or 7 to 10 after work, but it's like, yeah, that's in reality really tough. It's not only that energy wise you might be drained or tired at the end of the day, you also potentially have a family, you have people to take care of, you have to spend time with them. Obviously you want to spend time with them. That doesn't leave a lot of time. So I think in the future is for artists is, obviously to make money full time on their art. That's what you want to get to. But on the way there, and to be able to put more energy and finances sometimes into your art, is having a side hustle like an online business, social media, YouTube, any of those. We'll get a little bit more into that as well. But first, I kind of want to dispel the notion that the starving artist archetype is something that to almost be proud of, I guess, because there are artists out there that almost kind of identify with that, like the starving artist. That means you're a real artist. It's like, I don't think that's the case at all. You don't have to be a real artist and be basically only doing that and not making money any which way. There are different ways to do it, and you're as much of an artist if you do have an online business or you do have something like that. You're as much of an artist as someone that's waiting tables or whatever they're doing to survive while pursuing their art. You're the same. It's the same thing. You're as much an artist as that person, and I think that's really important to remember. And sometimes throughout history there's some examples of artists that people point to and this guy was starving artist for a while and then he made it. But in reality, there's not really that many, especially if we look back pre-internet. Famous example is Van Gogh, and he really only became famous and probably made money, or his estate made money, I guess, after he died. He didn't have a lot of money, and the only reason that he was able to pursue his painting and art, it's not like he was doing some kind of 9 to 6 job or something. He was able to pursue his art pretty much full time, but it's a little known fact. The reason he was able to do that is because he had a brother that was financially supporting him. And that's something that no one talks about. You know what I mean? And that is sometimes the case for these stories that you hear of this artist that basically wasn't making money for years and years and pursuing it full time. It's like, well, how is he surviving? Well, in some cases, like the Van Gogh example, his brother was financially supporting him. And part of that is, part of the reason that people don't talk about that is because they want to romanticize this starving artist archetype or this lifestyle. I personally don't think it's something to romanticize. I think as an artist, you have to give yourself, especially nowadays, and if we're thinking about film and art, acting and things like that, you have to give yourself a super long runway. You can't just be like, well, I'm gonna pursue it for 5 years, and if I don't make it in 5 years, then I'm done. Well, if you're really passionate about this, you might not like lose that passion in 5 years. If anything, you'll want to maybe pursue this, who knows, your whole life. So you need to be able to give yourself a super long runway that isn't outcome dependent and results dependent, because then it doesn't allow you to do that. So I think the mindset has to change of like, oh, I have X amount of time, this pressure, I have to make it by X age. And I see this a lot in the acting world, especially as I've done talent management over the last 10 years, is there's actors that think that they should make it by 30, they should make it by 35, whatever the age is. And that's just not true. You don't have to put this limit on yourself and this time limit. I think the time limit makes it incredibly hard. So you need to give yourself a runway with all these things like online business, a side hustle, whatever it is, so you can give yourself a longer runway. And nowadays you can do that. You can make money without breaking through mainstream. Even musicians that are making more money from their YouTube than they are from anything else. There's specific YouTube musicians. I know there's musicians on there that are teaching music that have 100K, 200K subscribers, that have courses, making their full-time living from that while they still pursue their art. So there are a lot of different ways to even monetize your art if you're willing to do other things instead of potentially just releasing your original songs, which you can do at the same time. And then on the flip side, if you don't want to use your art in that way, which is also fine, maybe you want to keep that separate, maybe you want to keep your art kind of more pure, like really for you, and if you business it up like teaching, maybe you don't enjoy it as much, that's completely up to you, and that's fine. Like I do the same thing. I have separate businesses. I have an online business, Airbnb, that I co-own. I have the management company that I've had for the last 10 years. And these are all location independent, in a lot of ways time independent, in the sense that I don't need to spend 9 to 6 on it. It's however many hours I need to push it forward. But if I want, I can work a lot less than a normal person working a job and spend more time on, let's say, making a movie. If I'm making a movie and I need to shoot 3 weeks, I can do that with these businesses. If I was working anywhere else, I wouldn't be able to do that. But meanwhile, I'm not deferring my life to quote unquote make it in art or film or whatever, or waiting for a movie to make millions of dollars before I can live. I'm living now already comfortably in what I'm doing because of these businesses that I've built online throughout the years, which allows me more freedom to pursue what I'm creatively interested in. And it allows me to invest. Like if I just shot a short film a couple months ago, and instead of having to raise money for that, I could invest my own money into that, which is way quicker and really nice. It's really great to do, you know, and it just makes your art better, at least for me. And I think that's important to remember. Just doing something separately does not mean that you're not 100% committed to what you're doing or your passion. You don't have to be this one thing nowadays. You can have something else and still be passionate about your art. And then also, once you make money as an artist, so let's say, I don't know, let's give an example, like you're an actor and you book a movie or show and you don't know how many seasons it's going to go, right? And so maybe one season you make a ton of money. You make like $500,000 or $700,000 or a lot in one season of a series regular, which is a realistic number, especially as a first time series regular. Obviously, as you go, your quote goes up and you'll make more. Let's say you just have one season. Well, a lot of artists, they spend that money too quickly, or they just try to live off that in terms of like savings, and then it disappears really quick, and then you're back in survival mode. Whereas if you learn how to invest in a professional way, if that's in stocks or real estate or whatever it is, then you won't have to go back to survival mode. And personally, I recommend, obviously, because that's what I specialize in, is real estate over stocks. I think stocks is good long term to also diversify potentially, but it doesn't give you monthly cash flow or barely anything, especially even if it's dividend stock. Whereas real estate, you do get monthly cash flow. Like, so even if you're doing, let's say you're not even doing Airbnb, let's say you're doing long-term rental, which I do as well, and you invest in some of these houses that are around 100K, 150K in the Midwest, which there are, and people are always surprised about this, but there are towns that are appreciating and that have houses like this. So instead of, let's say you make 400 or 500K and just putting it in savings and just trying to live off that till your next gig, maybe half of that you put into this real estate, and now you're cash flowing maybe $2,000 a month. Maybe you put 200,000 in, maybe you're cash flowing 2,000 a month. Now you have something to back you up. And then the more you work, you keep investing until you potentially have enough investment that you can cover your living expenses. And that's goal number one. If you can cover your living expenses, you get a lot of freedom as an artist. So I would recommend, as an artist, when you do make money, then save all that, keep your how you live at the same. Don't all of a sudden splurge, get a house or whatever. Invest that right away, so that you can get to a point where your living expenses are covered. But when you're making money as an artist, and you have basically the privilege to do that, because like I said earlier, 0.4% of artists, if that's acting, music, whatever it is, they actually make enough to make a full-time living. So when you do get a job, the hard thing for artists is sometimes they just put that into savings and they kind of keep it there until they get their next job. You know, it's like their way of just like surviving till the next job, but that always leaves you in survival mode. And in a lot of ways that'll affect your art too, you know, because you're not coming from a place of basically abundance, coming from a place of scarcity. And so what I would recommend, definitely when you do make money from your art, invest that right away. If that's in long-term real estate or short-term rentals, whatever it is, you can learn all that. Then you'll make a return. You'll cash flow every month, and that's what you want. You want your cash flow to cover your basic living expenses so that you're not in survival mode, so you can pursue your art fully. So that needs to be goal number one, is let's get to covering living expenses and investing as much as you can initially, and even if that means not upgrading your lifestyle initially, staying living with roommates even when you book that series regular, up until you get to this level of basically covering your living expenses. I think that's really important. And not only will investing or having an online business or both, or having a side hustle that you do online, whatever it is, that will all help you even creatively. I think sometimes people think, oh, I don't want to put energy into that, it'll take energy away from my art. But that's not true. What takes energy away from your art is being in survival mode and doing your day job, but you're doing 40, 50 hours a week. That takes energy away from your art sometimes, because that's tough. It's really tough. If you're waiting tables 40, 50 hours a week, that takes a lot of energy. That's really tough. So you want to get to a place where you're building, let's say, your side business, and you're investing the money that you make so that you can eventually get to a place where your living expenses are covered. And that'll help your art. It'll help tremendously. You know, just more freedom. You can even invest more of your finances into your art, which is amazing. Imagine you're able to invest into your own short films, or maybe you're making a lot more money. You can start investing some of that into a feature film. Whatever it is, that just helps you a lot. It gives you freedom, and you get to pursue more of what you want. And that's all money, in my opinion, is for. It is freeing up your life to do more of what you want. So what does this mean? This means you need to learn business skills. I think nowadays, with the internet and with how the world is and just how everything is now, there is no excuse for not everyone to learn business skills. Even people that say, well, I'm completely artistic, or I'm completely right-brained, I just don't know anything business-wise. That is not an excuse. That's a terrible excuse. Like, anything can be learned. I think that's important. You need to start with that belief. Anything you can learn. Now, you might not want to learn something that much, but that's okay, because if you're learning something, even if you're not that interested in it, you need to know what the bigger goal is. If your bigger goal is the freedom, pursuing your art, and this is a step you have to take to get there. So you need to learn business skills. You need to learn investing skills. This is important for any artist, no matter what you do. If it's music, film, producing, directing, you need to learn business skills. That's non-negotiable. And the great thing is, the more you learn these skills, it will help you in your art. Because now, instead of completely having someone else handle negotiations, you not knowing what's going on, or even marketing-wise knowing what's going on, now you're learning skills that you can potentially use even for your art. Let's say you're learning how to do social media to sell for your side business. Well, now you can use those social media skills to help your music, for example, on Instagram or YouTube, whatever it is. Or you can help that to use it for your films that you're putting out online, how to market that better, how to sell your movie better. Potentially you sell your movie yourself. You don't get a sales agent. You don't get that. You go directly to distributors. You sell yourself. So the more business skills you learn, it all relates to your art, and it will help your art, even if that's only in time freedom, financial freedom, all of that. That's the minimum that you want it to help with. But then it actually can directly affect your art and expand your art. And I think it's important that everyone realizes, especially nowadays, you need to learn business skills. It doesn't matter if you're not that business inclined or you don't even really want to be an entrepreneur or a business. Everyone in this new economy moving forward has to be able to do that if you want to be able to, I think, survive long term and have a good life and basically pursue more of what you want. So start learning the skills, pursue what you want to pursue, but also figure out how to start this side business, start investing, all of that, and just see how much it changes your life. I mean, it's life changing. And I think that's what I would recommend the most. And just, there's so much information out there. It's all out there, which is so great about the time we live in now. Like, imagine 30 years ago, it would have been nearly impossible. Now you have so many options, so there really is no excuse to get started today. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys more about this, maybe the next video. Give me a comment, let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you guys next week.